for 30 plus years. I've seen every type of child grow up.
Instead of giving me what I wanted, she gave me what I needed, which was truth.
Don't let emotions win. Let truth win.
Do your very best, and you should have a lot of fun while you do it. And the better you get at something, the more fun you're going to have at something.
You moms and dads are wired with everything you need to be a parent to a great kid. Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. This is episode number 7, The Strong-Willed Child. I'm your host, Dr. Meg Meeker, and I'm thrilled to talk about the strong-willed child. I like them. I've raised one or two, and now I get to grandparent a strong-willed child. So let me start by asking, do you have one in your home? If you have a strong-willed child, you probably know it because you've battled once or twice or maybe many times. Let me ask you another question. Are you strong-willed? What were you like for your parents to raise? Did you give them a hard time because you were stubborn and tenacious? If you're a strong-willed parent, parenting a strong-willed child, you need to listen to this podcast. Either you have a strong-willed child or you know somebody who has a strong-willed child, or maybe you just have one who's kind of tough to discipline. This podcast is for you. As I always do, I'm going to give you 3 points to ponder so that when you're done listening to the podcast, you have something to apply. I'm also looking forward to answering a question of a parent who wrote in about a 3-year-old who's a very sweet kid, but when he gets frustrated and mad, he hits. So we need to talk about that. I'm also going to have a great conversation with Laura Ingraham. You may know her from Fox News, her website LifeZet, or her very popular radio program. And remember, don't just download, click subscribe. I'll tell you why. When you subscribe, every episode afterward shows up automatically in your feed. You won't regret it. Friends, I need to tell you, raising great kids requires a plan. I wrote you a plan. It's called the Strong Parent Project. You will find so much information at the Strong Parent Project. The first online course is going to be ready for you. It's called the 12 Principles of Raising Great Kids. I wrote the program for one reason, because I want you to enjoy parenting more. I want you to be a more effective parent, and I want you to quit worrying about the small stuff and focus on the big stuff. And those are the 12 principles. So go to megmeekermd.com and click on the Strong Parent Project and check out my online course, The 12 Principles of Raising Great Kids. I created this program just for you. I want you to listen in on a conversation I had with radio talk show host Laura Ingraham. She talks about raising a strong-willed child of her own, and she's a single mom. I have a great guest today. Laura Ingraham is joining me from her home. Laura, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Great to be here, Meg.
Oh, it's so fun. So we're going to talk about Laura Ingraham, the mom. And particularly we're going to talk about strong-willed children.
Oh,
and,
boy.
when I thought about doing an episode on the strong-willed child, I thought, who do I know who might have been strong-willed growing up? And I immediately thought of you. But the cool thing is you also have a strong-willed daughter. So we're going to talk about that. But, many of our listeners may not know. You're a single mom. You have 3 adopted children. Very demanding jobs. I think there's a sense when your kids are young and you're in your 30s that you need to do everything and sort of push your kids aside, but you really shouldn't do that. You've got to be willing to sacrifice and say, you know what? If my family's going to be a priority, it's a priority, and I have to discipline myself to make that happen.
I think of, the times like my mother was a waitress until she was about 74, and she's passed on now. But I think of all the things that she did, and she didn't go to college, but she worked so hard, with her hands, out in the yard, everything to try to keep our modest house looking nice and good foods, smells of baking, all that. And I don't do that because I can't.
Yeah.
But I laugh with my kids, and, we also talk about my mother a lot, which is important. So they kind of know the kind of person she was, even though she's not here. So I try to do that as well.
Do you think your work ethic and your drive came from watching your mom?
I think so. Also, I didn't have the easiest kind of home life situation. So I think part of it was I was driven to get out, driven to succeed because, my mother never had the chance to go to college. She was super smart and she's a great person, and she never had that chance. And I wanted to do it for her, but I also wanted to do it for me because I didn't want to feel like I had no opportunities, and she struggled so much for me.
Let's talk about strong-willed kids. I imagine you were a strong-willed girl growing up.
Yes, Meg. How perceptive of you. You really should think of going into pediatrics because you're really picking up on this.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. And then when you told me that your firstborn, Maria, is strong-willed, I will tell you, I just felt like laughing out loud when you told me that because it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. Maria is, she's from Guatemala. She has that Spitfire kind of Latina personality, which I love, of course, because it's hilarious. But along with that, and my youngest, Nikolai, has the same kind of personality. He's Russian. And it's quite something to behold, especially when you kind of to sit back and say, well, wait a second, that's actually kind of the way I was. And she's not my biological child, obviously. So I'm like, God must have a good sense of humor.
He has a great sense of humor,
I would always give my mom a hard time. I mean, I was not exactly the easiest child at times to raise. I could be I could be sulky and wanted it my way or the highway. I was not a great sport. I would, when I was little, when I was high school and stuff, it was different. But, I always knew best. I was like, no, Mom, that's not the way you do it. And my mother was like, okay, wait a second. I went through the Depression, okay? I survived the Depression and utter poverty. And you're going to tell me I don't know how to do something? But now I feel like I'm getting a wink from heaven because somewhere my mother is just howling laughing that I'm now having to deal with the same thing she had to deal with.
There's a funny thing, and we've talked about this before, but the oldest child of the same sex of a parent is the one who really pushes your buttons. And so she pushes your buttons, but on top of that, she has your tenacity and your stubbornness. So it's kind of like parenting part of you. But that's what's so irritating about it, I think.
Right.
My oldest daughter, she finally caved, I'll say, when she was about 12. But I remember looking at her going, one of us is going down here, and it's not going to be me. So have at it, because they keep you in this battle for a long time. Because that's what they're really good at, is just staying the course in their stubbornness. Do you ever feel like you're constantly locking heads and you have difficulty enjoying her?
Yes. It's one of the biggest wastes of time ever. You squander good moments, and you obviously kind of forget in the white heat of, I can't believe you didn't tell me the truth, or I can't believe you're picking on your brother. Right. In those moments, you forget the perspective of, look, 20 years from now when she's married and has her first child, God willing. Yeah. None of this matters. None of this stuff matters. You got to get through it. You got to learn good lessons, but you can't. I mean, it's the same old, saying that sounds trite, but making a mountain out of a molehill. And I think it's the symptom of being someone really driven. It's why sometimes people who aren't driven are, I think, better parents, because they let kids develop more naturally and don't kind of put too much pressure on them. And I think when we took a lot of pressure on ourselves to succeed, it's like we think we're going to create a carbon copy of ourselves, and it's almost like a pride thing. Yeah. Like, you have to be. No, I was an A student. You have to be an A student. Believe me, I haven't said that to my kids, but sometimes I feel myself and I check myself and I say, well, wait a second. I didn't grow up in an orphanage. I didn't spend my first 3 years in an orphanage. My daughter is unbelievably smart. She's hilarious. She's a great girl. We're all struggling against our own backdrop of experience, and some of it's good and some of it, wasn't good. And it's hard to leave the bad stuff behind. It's hard to do that.
I think you're right. And I think that one of the biggest challenges for parents of strong-willed children who are strong-willed themselves is dealing with our own emotions and our own stuff. And that's what makes the parenting so hard. Because if you could sort of deal with yourself first and say, okay, I have really high expectations of me. This is what I want. And you are driving me crazy because you're not becoming the young woman I think you should be. If you could deal with that and then just deal with Maria and love her and sort of say, okay, God has a plan for you. You're a very gifted young woman. How can I, as your mom, embrace you and help you become the person you're supposed to be, not the person that A, I want, or B, that I feel pressure by my peers to create? Because the truth of the matter is, peer pressure does a job on every single one of us parents. So do you find that you transfer the expectations you put on yourself, because you put really high expectations on yourself, onto her and the boys, or just her?
My hope is with the kids is that they put in their best effort, and their best effort, whatever it is they do. And I don't care if they don't play a single sport. I'm not one of these parents who's like, you got to play a sport. I don't believe in that. I think getting physical exercise of some sort is really good for development. But if they don't want to play a sport, I mean, believe me, the last thing I'm going to do is drag them to tennis practice or to make me feel like I'm more of a complete parent. I don't really care about any of that stuff. But on the academic stuff, I tell my kids, look, I have a job, and I have to go to my job every day. Your job right now is to be a student, and your job is to do the best you can possibly do and be respectful to everyone around you, the adults, your classmates. You're representing this family in public, and you're representing yourself. And God wants you to be the best human being you can be, and that means you have to have respect for the people around you and the way you talk, the way you dress, the way you interact. But best effort is what I really what I demand. I really do demand that. And when I see efforts that are not the best or sloppy or lazy, I call them out, because I say, look, no one's throwing rose petals at your feet every day. You're going to have to do your very best, and you should have a lot of fun while you do it, because learning is really fun and it's really cool. And the better you get at something, the more fun you're going to have at something. And so, that's how I kind of talk. I talk to them like really no nonsense. And, and we'll have pillow fights at night, and we'll go worm hunting in the afternoon. But they're going to, when they're at school, they're to do their best effort. And when they slough off or they goof around or they're not putting in their best effort, then they don't get to do the cool stuff that they otherwise get to do. If that's putting unrealistic expectations on them, then, well, I guess that's what I'm doing, but that's what I expect. That's what I think we should ask of our kids.
I think quite the contrary. I don't think you're putting unrealistic expectations. I think you're attending to your kids' character, which is so much more important to their performance. Look, just work really, really hard, because that's what life is. Now, one of the cool things about you as a mom is that you aren't afraid of teaching your kids your values. And, we've talked about this, that you want Maria to dress respectfully and modestly. And so you're pretty strict about that. I am too. And I was when our kids were growing up. Do your kids feel repercussions at school because you don't let them do things that maybe their friends can like? You don't want Maria strutting around in a bikini. Do they get any kind of repercussions at school? Because
Not yet, but they're still pretty young.
Yeah.
And I basically have told my kids consistently that there are going to be people who make fun of you and ridicule you, and a lot of people tell you to do this or that, and you're not going to do this or that.
Yeah.
And just get used to it. I've been telling them that since they were 5. People are going to tell you, oh, just smoke. It's cool. They're going to tell you, try this. They're going to say, get in the car, and they'll be drinking. People do all sorts of really dumb things, and the cool thing is not to do what the dumb people are doing. And you can pray for them, you can try to help them, but you're not going to endanger your life or your own, character by doing these stupid things. So, they're going to do stupid things because that's what we all did when we were young, but I hope they're not going to do as many stupid things as I did.
That's a great asset that you have as a mom, is your willingness to sort of say, look, this is the way it is. You're kind of like a smiling brick wall, and that's what you need to be, is like, I don't move on this principle, and this is what you're going to do. What helps you most in your parenting? How do you get through really tough days?
I lean on some really good friends. I happen to have like 3 or 4 just people who, because I'm an older mother for a lot of my friends have kids graduate from college. So most of my friends have already been through this. And then my closest friend, which I think I've mentioned to you, Meg, before, is a couple named Pat and Becky Cipollone, who have 10 children. And Pat's my godfather. He's a couple of years younger than I am, and he's also the godfather to 2 of my kids. His wife is the godfather to Dimitri. So they're really important, as are 2 of my other friends from Dartmouth, Stone sisters. and they all have kids, and we kind of mutually support each other. We're all Catholics. We all are traditional and conservative, and we're all very mindful of our own flaws and limitations. And, it's not about judgment or finger wagging or how did you forget this or why didn't you make this decision? It's about, I've been through something like that, or, a friend of mine went through that. Let me talk to her, or maybe you want to see this movie instead of that movie with the kids, or, read this book. And I don't know what I would have done without them.
Yeah.
I mean, our church is so important to us, and that's such a great comfort, of course. And our school, our Catholic school, has been really great. But the people who've known you longest and know your kind of life story are, I think, the ones who can be the most honest with you and give you just the practical advice, which, especially handling things as a single parent, it does kind of take a village in my situation. And so,
Well, and I think that's what was really cool, too, about you as a single mom is that you're willing to say, look, I am limited as a mom, as a single mom. I can do a great job. I can be a fabulous mom to my kids, but my kids need more, and they need male exposure. They need my friends. And I can tell you, my kids who are older now have said they loved knowing our friends, Walt's and my friends, because it made them realize that we were less weird than they thought, because there were actually other adults who sort of espoused the same values and went to church and that kind of thing. And I know the faith is very important to you and that you pray real regularly with your kids.
Oh, yeah, every day.
Yeah. Finally, a word of advice for stressed mothers or fathers, particularly single parents out there who have a strong-willed child and they feel like, you know what, I'm just going to sink. What would you say to them?
Pull yourself out of your normal routine with your child regularly. In other words, everyone says routine is so important for kids. Yes, it is, absolutely. But it's really helpful to do something completely different with your strong-willed child. Whether it's grabbing a canoe and going into a public park and canoe together, whether it's going to a concert, whether it's just taking a long walk. If you're blessed to have a little extra money, maybe go away overnight somewhere, go camping, visit an elderly facility, or maybe volunteer at an animal shelter. I mean, whatever can take you out of the normal routine, which sometimes in these relationships, I think, become ruts.
Yes.
They see a different side of you, and you end up seeing a different side of them. That's helped me.
Yeah.
And then just tell them you love them all the time. I mean, I'm like, I love you, I love you. I mean, I tell my kids I love them so many times during the course of a day because, I don't know, I feel like it's so important, especially for them. But it's for all kids.
Yeah.
And I always say, Maria, why am I being so adamant that you try your hardest? And she'll kind of grimace at me sometimes, because you love me. And I said, go, because you love me. I said, bingo, ding, 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 ding,
ding, ding, ding, yes.
I don't know if that's all that profound, Meg. I do feel like I sometimes just stumble day to day, but I don't know. I feel really blessed. Really, this is not exactly, the way I thought my whole adult life with kids would be, but man, it's great. So I'm really lucky. I'm really blessed.
But that's the good stuff. You have a great career, but I think you would be probably the first to say that the real great stuff in your life is those three little ones sort of running around your house, giving 100%. You a really hard time. Yeah, giving you a hard time. And I love what you said to single parents out there, strong-willed kids. Take them somewhere where you can just have fun and get out of the headlock. Yep. Just say, okay, we're done with that for now. We're going to go out and have some fun. So, Laura, I sure appreciate all this time you've given us. I love the fact that you were willing to be open and talk to us about a very different side of you that nobody really gets to see, and that is that you're a really great mom.
Well, thank you.
And I'm personally really proud of the job you're doing. I think you're right on, and I think you need to write a parenting book.
Well, I think I better make sure I've been a good parent before I do that. But that never stopped political pundits from writing books who are routinely wrong on things. So I guess I could just keep that tradition going and write a parenting book. But I'm going to leave that expertise for a long while to you, Meg, because you're one of my heroes. So but thanks for chatting with me, and I'm going to be calling you for advice. So
hey, last time we were together, I slipped you my cell phone, so I mean it. If you're just going to freak out, I will be there and help you not freak out. Okay?
You better believe I have you on speed dial.
Okay. You have a wonderful night. Thanks so much, Laura.
All right. God bless. Talk
to
you
too.
Soon.
Bye.
Bye.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about that strong-willed child and how you're supposed to respond or how you want to respond. Let me give you 3 points, and I'm going to go through them each in detail. Be selective. Be victorious. Be consistent. What do I mean by being selective? One of the biggest problems is they run out of energy. The kids get tired of hearing them say no, and nobody wins. Kids don't listen, and parents give up. So one of the most important things when you're dealing with a strong-willed child, and whether that child is 2 or 16, the strategy is the same. So when you're dealing with a strong-willed child, you want to be very selective about the things that you're going to discipline for. Don't fall into the trap of saying no all day long. It's most important, as a general rule of thumb, to discipline for willful acts of defiance, not regular age-appropriate behavior. And sometimes those can be a little tricky to tell the difference, but here's the difference. A willful act of defiance occurs when you have clearly set out a rule for your child, and he or she knows the rule, and then they go and they break the rule. Or you say, don't you touch that pan on the top of the stove, and that child looks at you, and what do? They go over and they grab or touch, even with their finger, the pan on the top of the stove. That's a willful act of defiance. Kids who have a meltdown, kids who break things running around the house, kids who jump over couches or make a mess in your house, those are not willful acts of defiance. Those are episodes where kids are acting very age appropriate. Yes, their behavior may bother you and it may get under your skin, but it isn't necessarily something that you want to discipline for. What I encourage you to do is sit down and review your child's behavior over the past couple of weeks. Say you have a 3-year-old and you feel that your days with your 3-year-old consist of you running around telling that child, no, 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 no. You want to break out of that headlock and you want to say to yourself, what are the 2 worst behaviors that this child is displaying? And it really doesn't matter the age of the child. If you are married, you need to sit down and talk with your spouse about this so that you're on the same page. But pick out 2 behaviors that are really most offensive to you. And then you say, this is what we're going to discipline for over the next couple of weeks. And even if the child is defying you in other areas, you're going to put those discipline areas on hold for the time being. Because remember, you have to preserve your energy and you have to win every battle that you have. So obviously you can't battle everything all day long. So once you've picked out what those behaviors are, for example, the way your child speaks, then you're going to say, okay, say you have a 4-year-old. Dad and I have noticed that you have gotten into a really bad behavior of talking rudely to each of us. And we have decided that we're going to help you change that behavior. And from this point on, you're no longer permitted to say X, Y, or Z. Or you're no longer permitted to yell at us. So you spell it out very clearly to your child at a time when you're feeling very relaxed and the child's feeling very relaxed. And then you look at the child and say, do you understand? And if you need the child to repeat it back, have them repeat it back. And then you say, when you do that thing, this is what's going to happen. You are going to go to your room and you are going to be there for half an hour or for 20 minutes. You have to make sure that the consequence is uncomfortable for the child because you want the child to avoid the consequence. So pick the 2 behaviors that you want to discipline for first and go at those very hard over the next 2 to 4 weeks and make sure that you win those battles. Second, be victorious. When you draw a line in the sand with your child and you've laid down a law, let's say you have a 16-year-old and you say, son, your curfew is 10 o'clock at night. You can go out, you can be with friends, you can do this and this and this, but you must be home at 10 o'clock at night. Do you understand that? Yes, I understand it. And if you're not home at 10 o'clock at night, if you come in at 10:02 or 10:05 or 10:15, it has to be very, very clear, and it really can't be past 10 because 10:01 is the same as 10:15 or 10:30. If you do that, then the car is going to be taken away. Your iPhone's going to be taken away, or whatever the consequence is that you have chosen for that child that's going to bother him. And when you set down that rule, be prepared for one thing to happen, whether your child is 2 or whether your child's 15 or even 18. The minute you set down that rule with a strong-willed child, they're going to try to figure out whether you're serious or not. So they're going to go for the test. They're going to turn around and within probably 24 hours, they're going to break the rule you just told them they can't break because they want to know who's going to win. A strong-willed child always wants to be on top. Children who are not as strong-willed, who are not as stubborn, they give up the battle much more quickly, but not a strong-willed child. They will push you as far as they can, and they will try as hard as they can to be victorious. But when you've laid down the law, you, in no uncertain terms, must win the battle, particularly when you've drawn the line in the sand. And that's going to be very hard, and you cannot renege on them. If you take a cell phone away for a week, that means 7 days. It is not 6 days or 5 days, not even if he needs a ride to school. But no matter what, you win the battle. Sometimes I think being a strong disciplinarian to a strong-willed child is sort of standing there like a brick wall. Kids who are strong-willed run into things all the time because they test the boundaries, they test their limits. And unfortunately, you're the one that your child is going to have to run into. So you need to make sure that when they run into you, you don't topple over, the child topples over. And finally, you have to be consistent. What's the key to being consistent? I think the key to being consistent is not letting yourself get too fatigued. Many parents have battle fatigue. They're so tired of having the same fights over and over and over. Well, that's pretty normal for a strong-willed child because they are extremely resilient and they are younger and they have more energy and sometimes they have more tenacity and they know that they can wear you down. So if you make sure that your battle plan is the same this week and next month and 2 years from now, you will eventually get to the point where your child won't even challenge you on certain things because you have won over and over. So really, the beginning of the time when you're dealing with a strong-willed child is the hardest time. It's setting the rules and the boundaries and winning those rules, implementing the consequences. And eventually, a child will come to the point where they just don't wage war in certain areas where they know they're going to lose. That's the whole key with a strong-willed child. I want to encourage you, if you have a strong-willed child, strong-willed children are the kids who are going somewhere in life. Think about this. If you're going to be successful in a marriage, in your profession, in your parenting, you have to have tenacity and you have to have an element of strong will in you. Strong will takes you somewhere. So when you look at a child who's driving you crazy because you feel all they want to do is try to wear you down, remember, your job is not to take the will out of the child. Your job is not to overhaul his personality or her personality. Your job is to bend them in a direction where that stubbornness and strong will works for them, not against you. And eventually what happens with strong-willed kids is they learn to control themselves by having control imposed on them by you. And then they begin to embrace their will, embrace their stubbornness, embrace their tenacity, and then they go at life with a lot of gusto. And if you are a strong-willed person, remember, that child is probably going to be the toughest for you to raise because he or she will remind you of yourself. And two strong-willed people in one house can lock heads a lot. So don't discipline for too many things at a time. Figure out what acts are willful acts of defiance and what behaviors are just normal kid stuff, and let that go. So remember, your 3 points to ponder. 1, be selective. 2, be victorious. And 3, be consistent. All right, let's get social. I want to hear from you and interact with you. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can go to megmeekermd.com and click on the links. You can send me a question on Facebook or email it to me at askmeg@megmeekermd.com. Again, that's askmeg@megmeekermd.com. So here's the question featured in this episode. It comes from Liz.
Dr. Meg, I have a 3-year-old who's one of the sweetest kids you can ever meet, but when he gets frustrated, he gets angry and he tends to hit things. I feel like he just doesn't know how to process all of this. Are there any tips on things that we could do better or differently?
Liz, yes, I think I can help you. First of all, I want to assure you that it sounds to me as though you have a very healthy 3-year-old. Many 3-year-olds get frustrated and they get angry and they don't know what to say or how to control themselves or what to do with that frustration and anger on the inside. So they just kind of explode through their hands or their legs, and they hit and they kick. And sometimes they'll bite. Now, they're not trying to be bad kids. They simply don't know what to do with their frustration. But the fact that he gets frustrated and hits is very normal behavior. And I will tell you something, it's going to take a while for you to teach him that when he's mad, he can't hit. The next time he gets frustrated and angry, you get down on his level, you look at him in the eye, you grab him in the arms and say, honey, I know you're mad, but when you're mad, you can't hit. When you're mad, you can't say something. When you're mad, this is what I want you to do. You want to teach him it's okay to be mad and it's okay to be frustrated. But when you have those feelings, there are things you can do and things that you can't do. And then you tell him, when you feel like hitting your sister, walk away. I encourage parents to give kids Nerf bats and Nerf balls. Give them a place to vent their anger, particularly boys who have a lot of energy. The last thing that we want to do is shut down their feelings. We want to tell them how to control their behavior and responses to the feelings because they can't always control those feelings. Give them a way to release that energy in a healthy way. Second, affirm it's okay to be mad. And then third, give him clear restrictions on what he cannot do. When you're mad, you can't hit. When you're mad, you can't say these things. Keep them very simple. You will frustrate the daylights out of him if you try to explain why you're telling him this or why he's feeling this way or why he shouldn't this. Just keep it very simple for him because you're dealing with a child who's already frustrated and you're going to make him more frustrated if you try to rationalize what you're telling him. What you need is time. Just keep doing what you're doing over and over and over. You're going to break the hitting pattern, but it's going to take some time. It's not going to happen in a week, and it may not happen in a month, but it will happen. You can break it, but the way you don't do it is getting mad back at the child, and that's a common mistake that many parents make. Never get mad at a child for feeling something, and I wouldn't even get mad at them for hitting something. You want to redirect, you want to teach, and you want to help him have firm boundaries. So, Liz, I want to encourage you that you can win this war. As always, parents, keep sending me your questions at askmeg@megmeekermd.com. Again, that's askmeg@megmeekermd.com. So, parents, if you have a strong-willed child, I want you to take heart. You can win the battles. Remember my 3 points to ponder. 1, be selective in your discipline. 2, be victorious. And 3, be consistent. I guarantee if you follow that, you're going to enjoy that stubborn child a whole lot more. And remember always, great kids are raised, not born.
Thanks for listening to Parenting Great Kids. And don't forget to visit megmeekermd.com and click on the Strong Parent Project. If you'd like to tell us what you think, write us a review. And to catch future episodes, be sure to click subscribe. And as always, you can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @megmeeker.